The monitoring chamber of the Galactic Council's Intelligence Division erupted into chaos as thousands of holographic displays simultaneously flashed red. Senior Intelligence Officer Exthal's secondary heart skipped a beat as he watched the impossible unfold before his four eyes. Earth's electromagnetic signature, a constant beacon in the galaxy for the past century, had vanished without warning. Report. Exthal's crystalline voice cut through the pandemonium. His silver-scaled hands moved swiftly across the neural interface, ringing up verification protocols that had never failed in his 300 years of service. "Sir, we've lost everything," Lieutenant Kuvan responded, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. Television broadcasts, radio signals, power grid emissions, satellite communications, all gone. It's as if someone threw a universal switch. Exthal's facial ridges contracted in concentration. The timing was too convenient. Just last week, their deep cover observers had reported humanity on the verge of a breakthrough in quantum mechanics. The species that had progressed from primitive combustion engines to faster-than-light theory in less than 2 centuries couldn't have simply winked out of existence. "Get me the archived readings from the last 48 hours. Hexful ordered, his scales shifting to a deeper shade of silver, a sign of deep concern among his kind. The holographic displays shimmered as they populated with data streams. In the background, the Council's emergency alert system began its haunting melody. Within minutes, representatives from 1,000 worlds would demand answers about the species they had watched with equal parts fear and fascination. "Sir," Kuvan's voice trembled slightly. "The energy readings before the blackout. They're unlike anything we've seen before. Look at the quantum fluctuation patterns." Exthal leaned forward, all 4 eyes widening. The data showed increasingly erratic energy spikes across Earth's power grids in the hours leading up to the blackout. But instead of the catastrophic failure pattern typical of a civilization-ending event, the spikes followed a methodical sequence. "This wasn't an accident," he muttered. "This was coordinated." The chamber's main doors parted with a soft hiss as High Counselor Zena entered, her bioluminescent form casting shadows on the worried faces of the intelligence staff. "Officer Exthal, please tell me this is a sensor malfunction." "I'm afraid not, High Counselor. Earth has gone dark, but not in the way we might think." Exthal projected the final energy readings onto the central display. "These patterns suggest intention, not destruction." Zena's glow pulsed with concern. "The Council is assembling as we speak. Half of them are celebrating what they assume is humanity's self-destruction. The other half are preparing for war, convinced this is the prelude to a human first strike." "Both assumptions may be premature," Exthal replied, highlighting a particular sequence in the data. "Look at these quantum signatures. They're similar to theoretical models our scientists proposed for trans-dimensional energy manipulation, models we abandoned as impossible centuries ago." The High Counselor's glow dimmed slightly. "Are you suggesting that humanity has achieved something we deemed impossible? It wouldn't be the first time." Exthal brought up historical recordings of Earth's technological progression. "Remember their first faster-than-light test? Every expert in the galaxy said their design would tear the ship apart. Instead, they rewrote our understanding of spatial mechanics." Warning chimes echoed through the chamber as more systems registered the complete absence of Earth's signature. The planet that had generated more technological advancement in 2 centuries than most species achieved in 2 millennia had become a ghost. "Assemble a first contact team," Zena ordered after a moment of consideration. "Full diplomatic protocols. If this is what you suspect, we need to understand it before panic spreads through the Council." Exthal nodded, already selecting personnel from his neural interface. As he worked, his mind raced with possibilities. Humanity had always been an anomaly, a species that treated impossibility as a temporary inconvenience rather than a natural law. If they had found a way to operate beyond conventional detection. "High Counselor," he said quietly, "we should consider the possibility that this isn't humanity's end, but rather their beginning. And that thought, I suspect, will terrify the Council far more than their silence. The alerts continued their urgent symphony as the galaxy's greatest fear began to take shape. Humanity hadn't destroyed itself. They had evolved beyond constraint. Commander Jessica Brooks watched the alien investigation fleet materialize near Mars orbit through the quantum viewing array. Unlike traditional screens, the array showed the true nature of the vessels, their energy signatures pulsing with barely contained anxiety. She allowed herself a small smile. The Council had sent their most sophisticated ships, equipped with sensors that could detect a single phone call from light years away. Those sensors would tell them nothing. They're scanning the defense grid locations, Lieutenant James Chen reported from his station. The holographic display showed the fleet's search patterns in precise detail. They've noticed the platforms are gone. Right on schedule, Jessica murmured. She remembered the heated debates about removing Earth's visible defenses. Some military leaders had called it suicide, but Dr. Reynolds' team had been adamant. Everything conventional had to go. The alien fleet split into 3 groups, their formation suggesting standard first contact protocols. Jessica had helped write those protocols during her years as Earth's military liaison to the Council. Now she was deliberately violating every single one of them. Primary scan incoming, Chen announced. They're doing a full spectrum analysis. The massive galactic vessels deployed their sensor arrays, bathing Earth in everything from radio waves to quantum tunneling probes. Under normal circumstances, they would detect the energy signatures of 7 billion humans, countless machines, and the massive power grids that kept civilization running. Instead, their scans would show them a pristine planet with clear skies and thriving ecosystems. Cities would appear as nothing more than curious collections of structures. The billions of humans going about their daily lives would register as ordinary biological entities, indistinguishable from the planet's other life forms. Message from Dr. Reynolds, Chen said, his voice tight with excitement. Phase shift generators are performing perfectly. We're completely dark to their conventional sensors. Jessica nodded, remembering the day humanity had made the breakthrough. They had discovered that reality had layers, like pages in a book. Their civilization had been operating on a single page, fighting over dwindling resources. Dr. Reynolds and his team had found a way to shift slightly between the pages, accessing unlimited energy while becoming virtually invisible to anyone looking at the original page. The alien fleet's largest vessel, bearing the markings of a diplomatic flagship, began its approach to Earth. Jessica recognized the design. A Centaurian deep space explorer, commanded by Kutul, one of the few alien officials who had always treated humanity with cautious respect rather than fear. They're launching atmospheric probes, Chen reported. Standard environmental analysis package. Let them come, Jessica said, watching the small devices enter Earth's atmosphere. They need to see this with their own eyes. The probes would find no radiation from nuclear plants, no electromagnetic fields from power lines, no thermal signatures from combustion engines. Instead, they would discover cities humming with an energy that their sensors couldn't quantify. They would find vehicles moving without visible means of propulsion, buildings maintaining perfect temperature without climate control systems, and humans going about their lives as if technology had become an afterthought rather than a necessity. Commander, Chen's voice carried a note of concern. They're requesting landing clearance. Standard first contact protocols. Jessica straightened her uniform, though she knew the gesture was unnecessary. Soon, she would need to play her part in humanity's greatest deception and its greatest revelation. Grant them clearance for the New York landing zone, she ordered. Alert Dr. Reynolds and the Welcome Committee. It's time to show them what humanity has become. As the alien ships began their descent, Jessica thought about the real reason behind Earth's disappearance. The quantum shift had been necessary, yes, but it wasn't just about solving an energy crisis. They had seen something in those other layers of reality, something that made their old fears of alien invasion seem childish. Commander, Chen said softly, do you think they're ready for the truth? Jessica watched the ships approach, their sensors still desperately searching for signs of the civilization they had known. "They don't have a choice," she replied. "None of us do. What's coming won't care whether we're ready or not." The first ships touched down on American soil, their landing lights reflecting off buildings that shouldn't work, illuminating a civilization that had learned to exist between the seconds of conventional time. Kull had explored 17 different civilizations across the galaxy, but none had prepared him for what he found in New York City. His environmental suit's sensors insisted the gleaming skyscrapers before him couldn't exist. They registered no power signatures, no thermal emissions, no electronic activity. Yet here they stood, their surfaces gleaming in the morning sun, while humans moved about their business as if nothing had changed. "Impossible," muttered senior researcher Velox, waving her detection wand at a passing ground transport. The vehicle hummed silently past them, carrying its human passengers without any discernible engine or power source. "These readings make no sense. According to our instruments, that vehicle doesn't exist." Call watched a group of human children playing in a nearby park, their laughter carrying across the strange silence that had replaced the city's familiar electronic buzz. "Yet we can see it, touch it." He pressed a scaled hand against a nearby building wall. "Feel its warmth." The diplomatic team had split into groups across Earth's major cities. Reports were coming in from Tokyo, London, Mumbai, and a dozen other locations, all describing the same phenomenon. Human civilization continued to function, but it had somehow stepped sideways from conventional physics. "Ambassador K'tal," a warm voice called out. He turned to find Dr. Emily Richardson, their assigned liaison, approaching with a group of human officials. Like all humans, she appeared disarmingly fragile, yet her presence carried an authority that made his protective scales bristle. "Doctor," he acknowledged, noting how his universal translator functioned perfectly despite detecting no power source. "I believe you owe us an explanation." Emily smiled, gesturing toward the pristine skyline. "What you're seeing is the result of Project Quantum Shift. We've learned to access energy and exist in a way that your sensors can't detect, yet." "That's theoretically impossible," Velox interjected, her research tendrils coiling with agitation. "The energy requirements alone would be astronomical using conventional physics," Emily completed the thought. "But we're not using conventional physics anymore. We've learned to shift slightly out of phase with baseline reality. Think of it as stepping halfway into another dimension while keeping one foot in this one." Kill's secondary brain began processing the implications while his primary consciousness maintained the diplomatic dialogue. If humans had mastered trans-dimensional physics to this degree, their potential military applications would be. "We're not weaponizing this technology," Emily said, as if reading his thoughts. "We found something far more important than military advantage." She led them toward a nearby building, its entrance opening silently at their approach. Inside, holographic displays filled the air, but unlike any holos K'tal had seen before. These seemed to exist between the moments of time itself, showing images that his eyes registered but his brain struggled to process. 3 months ago, we detected something in the quantum layers we now inhabit," Emily explained, manipulating the displays with subtle hand movements. "Something that made us realize our old concerns about galactic politics were irrelevant." The displays shifted, showing what appeared to be tiers in the fabric of space-time itself. Through these tiers, shapes moved. Things that denied description, entities that seemed to consume light and matter alike. "They've destroyed countless civilizations in other dimensional planes," Emily continued, her voice grave. "We went dark not to hide from the Council, but to prepare. What's coming doesn't care about our political differences or technological advantages. It hungers for all life in all dimensions." K'tal felt his scales flatten against his body, an instinctive response to overwhelming threat. "Why show us this?" Emily's expression softened slightly. "Because we can't face this alone. Humanity's breakthrough has given us an advantage, but we'll need the galaxy's combined knowledge to survive what's coming. We need allies who understand not just the threat, but the necessity of evolution. Around them, the impossible building hummed with power that didn't exist, supporting a civilization that had learned to dance between realities. Tal realized that humanity hadn't gone dark out of aggression or fear. They had done it to become the guardians of a galaxy that had once feared them. "The Council has to know," he said finally, his translator struggling to convey the mix of awe and terror in his voice. "They will," Emily nodded. "But first, you need to understand exactly what we're up against. Let me show you what we found in the spaces between spaces." Dr. Marcus Reynolds stood before the gathered alien delegation in the Quantum Research Center's main amphitheater, acutely aware of the historical weight of this moment. The holographic displays around him showed the impossible, reality itself splitting into discrete layers like pages in an infinite book. 3 years ago, he began, his voice steady despite his nervousness. Humanity faced an unprecedented energy crisis. Our civilization required more power than our planet could sustainably provide. Traditional solutions, fusion, antimatter, zero-point energy, all proved insufficient. The assembled aliens watched intently as he manipulated the holographic display, showing Earth's power consumption curves reaching critical levels. Among them, Catal and Exthal sat forward, their expressions showing different shades of fascination and concern. "Then we discovered something remarkable," Reynolds continued, shifting the display to show quantum wavelength patterns. "Reality isn't a single continuous stream. It's more like a flowing river with countless currents. We learned to slit between these currents, accessing energy that existed in the spaces between conventional spacetime." He gestured, and the room's lighting shifted, revealing the true nature of the technology around them. The aliens gasped as they saw, for the first time, the subtle shimmer of quantum-shifted matter, objects existing simultaneously in multiple phases of reality. The breakthrough wasn't just about energy, Reynolds explained, walking through a desk to demonstrate the phase-shifting technology. "We discovered that by operating slightly out of phase with baseline reality, we could achieve what previously seemed impossible. Our cities now draw power from between dimensions. Our vehicles navigate through quantum spaces. Our entire civilization has evolved to exist in multiple states simultaneously." Exthal raised a scaled hand, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Doctor, the energy requirements for such a shift would be astronomical. How did you manage the initial transition?" Reynolds smiled, remembering the day they'd first succeeded. "We didn't need to power the entire shift at once. We created a cascading quantum effect, using each successful phase shift to power the next. Like lighting a fire that spreads itself, but controlled and precise." He brought up new displays showing the global implementation. "Within months, we had transformed our entire infrastructure. But during this process, we discovered something that changed everything." The holographics shifted again, now showing the tears in reality they detected. The alien delegation stirred uneasily as they saw the darkness that lurked between dimensions. "These entities exist in the spaces we now traverse," Reynolds continued, his voice growing grave. "They consume entire realities, breaking down the barriers between dimensions. We've witnessed them devouring civilizations that existed in parallel to our own universe." Lieutenant Chen, standing at the back of the room, activated the next phase of the presentation. The holograms now showed the defense systems humanity had developed, technologies that operated on principles that defied conventional physics. "Our disappearance from your sensors wasn't an ending," Reynolds explained. "It was preparation. We've been building defenses not just for Earth, but for all reality. The phase shift technology that powers our cities can also create barriers against dimensional incursion." He paused, letting the implications sink in. "But we're not showing you this only as a warning. We need your help. Each species in the galaxy has unique insights, different ways of perceiving reality. Together, we might see solutions that we'd miss alone." Commander Brooks stepped forward, adding her military perspective. "The entities we detected don't distinguish between species or civilizations. They consume entire dimensional planes. Our phase shift technology gives us an advantage, but we'll need the combined knowledge of the galaxy to face this threat. Reynolds watched understanding dawn in the alien's eyes. The fear of humanity's advancement was being replaced by something else. Hope. They were beginning to see that Earth's darkness was actually a new kind of light, one that might help preserve all life in the galaxy. We went dark, Reynolds concluded, to prepare for the greatest darkness of all. Now we're asking for your help to ensure the light of consciousness continues to shine across all dimensions of reality. The room fell silent as the implications settled over the delegation. Humanity hadn't vanished in defeat. They had evolved to face a threat beyond imagination, and in doing so, had become the galaxy's best hope for survival. Admiral Emma Thompson stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, her white uniform a stark contrast against the dark crystalline floor. 3,000 representatives from across the galaxy surrounded her in ascending rings, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of alien life. The chamber buzzed with a mixture of fear, anger, and disbelief following her presentation. "You expect us to believe?" High Counselor Xena's bioluminescent form pulsed with skepticism. That humanity developed this technology purely for defensive purposes. Emma maintained her composure, despite the hostile energy radiating from many council members. The holographic displays around her showed the quantum phase shift technology in action, demonstrations that defied conventional physics. "Believe what you will about our motives," she replied, her voice carrying across the chamber. "But the threat we've discovered is real. These dimensional entities don't distinguish between species or civilizations. They consume entire realities." "Convenient," sneered Representative Koldar, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber's light. "Humanity develops godlike power and suddenly discovers a threat only they can see, only they can fight." Emma gestured, and a holographic display shifted to show the tears in spacetime they detected. "These rifts are beginning to appear in conventional space. Your own scientists can verify their existence. We're showing you this because we need your help, not your permission." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices and translator signals. Some representatives called for immediate military action against Earth. Others demanded access to the phase shift technology. A few simply fled the chamber, their species' fight-or-flight responses overwhelming their diplomatic training. High Counselor Exthal, recently promoted for his insights during the investigation, raised his scaled hand for silence. "Admiral Thompson, you must understand our position. Humanity has achieved what many thought impossible. You've rendered our most sophisticated detection systems obsolete. Our defensive networks would be useless against your technology. And yet," Emma countered, "instead of using this advantage for conquest, we're here warning you of a greater threat." She activated a new holographic sequence, showing the destruction of parallel Earths they'd witnessed. "These are recordings from dimensional planes where humanity failed to develop our technology in time. Entire realities erased." The chamber fell silent as they watched civilizations vanish, consumed by entities that defied description. Even the most skeptical representatives leaned forward, their natural curiosity overriding their fear. "We propose a joint defense initiative." Emma continued into the silence. "Earth will share aspects of our phase shift technology, adapted for each species' unique biology and technological base. In return, we need your scientific insights, your different perspectives on reality itself." "And if we refuse?" asked a voice from the upper tiers. Emma's expression remained neutral, but her eyes carried the weight of what she'd witnessed. "Then you'll face the dimensional entities with conventional weapons when they arrive. We've seen how that ends." The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Fear of humanity was being replaced by fear of something far worse. Representatives clustered in species groups, their translators working overtime as they debated the implications. "How long?" Exthal asked, his scales shifting to a deeper silver. "How long until these rifts appear in our space?" "The first major incursion will begin in less than 3 months," Emma replied. We've tracked the dimensional degradation patterns. That's why we're revealing everything now. We need to begin preparations immediately." High Counselor Zena's glow pulsed rapidly as she processed this information. "You understand that some will see this as an ultimatum: cooperate or face annihilation." "With respect, High Counselor," Emma said, her voice carrying a hint of steel, "the ultimatum comes from reality itself. Evolution or extinction. Humanity chose to evolve. We're offering you the same choice." The chamber's mood shifted again as her words sank in. The representatives began to see humanity's darkness in a new light, not as a threat, but as a shield against something far worse. "We will need time to verify your claims," Exthal announced, taking control of the situation. "But if what you've shown us is true, we cannot afford to waste time on political maneuvering." Emma nodded, relief hidden beneath her professional demeanor. The galaxy's greatest fear was transforming into its greatest hope, if they could only act quickly enough. Michael Anderson, head of Earth's extra-dimensional defense, stood before the Galactic Council's emergency session. The chamber had been modified with quantum-shifted technology, allowing him to show the assembled representatives what humanity had discovered in the spaces between realities. "What you're about to see," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment, "was first detected during our initial phase shift experiments. We thought it was a sensor malfunction. We were wrong. The holographic display activated, but unlike conventional holograms, these images seemed to exist between moments of time. The assembled aliens watched in horror as reality itself peeled apart, revealing what lurked between dimensions. We call them Void Hunters," Anderson continued, highlighting the shadowy entities that moved through the tiers. "They exist in a state we barely comprehend, feeding on the energy of entire realities. They don't just destroy civilizations, they erase them from existence itself." He gestured, and the display shifted to show multiple parallel timelines. "We've witnessed them consuming 17 different versions of Earth across parallel dimensions. In each case, the pattern was identical. Reality begins to tear. Conventional energy weapons prove useless, and within days, that entire dimensional plane simply ends." High Counselor Exthal leaned forward, his scales shifting color with distress. "How do you know these aren't natural phenomena?" "Because they learn," Anderson replied, bringing up new data streams. "Each incursion is more efficient than the last. They adapt to defensive strategies, find weaknesses in dimensional barriers. They show intelligence, predatory intelligence." The display shifted again, showing Earth's defense preparations. Massive quantum barriers shimmered between layers of reality, powered by technology that defied conventional physics. "Our phase shift technology gives us an advantage," Anderson explained. "We can operate in the same dimensional spaces they use for hunting. We can detect them coming, create barriers they can't easily breach. But it's not enough." Commander Jessica Brooks stepped forward, adding her tactical expertise. "Each species in this room perceives reality differently. Your sensors detect things ours miss. Your weapons operate on principles we're still learning to understand. United, we might see solutions that would be impossible alone." The chamber erupted in overlapping discussions as representatives debated the implications. Anderson waited patiently, knowing that fear and disbelief were natural responses to existential threats. "You've had months to prepare," one representative called out. "Why reveal this only now?" "Because the first major incursion is about to begin," Anderson replied, his voice cutting through the chaos. The display shifted to show a map of dimensional weak points across the galaxy. "We've tracked their hunting patterns across parallel realities. They're coming, and they're coming soon." He highlighted specific points where reality had already begun to thin. "These tiers are appearing faster than we predicted. We estimate less than 3 months before the first full breach. Humanity has developed countermeasures, but implementing them across the galaxy requires cooperation on an unprecedented scale." The display showed new images: Earth's cities transformed by quantum technology, vehicles shifting between dimensional phases, weapons that could affect the space between spaces. Every species here has unique insights, Anderson continued. The Centaurians understand spatial mechanics in ways we're still learning. The Vex have mapped quantum states we didn't know existed. The Meridians can detect energy patterns we can't even perceive. We need all of these perspectives to face what's coming. Admiral Thompson joined them, her presence adding weight to the presentation. Earth went dark because we needed time to prepare, to understand what we were facing. Now we're asking for your help not just to save humanity, but to save all realities. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The fear of humanity's technological leap was being replaced by the recognition of a far greater threat. We don't have time for politics, Anderson concluded. We don't have time for ancient rivalries or species distrust. What's coming doesn't care about our differences. It hungers for all life, in all dimensions. We must evolve together, or we will be erased separately. The silence that followed was different from before. Not the quiet of fear, but the stillness of dawning purpose. Humanity's greatest fear had become the galaxy's last hope. Colonel Olivia Foster watched the dimensional tear form above New Beijing through her quantum-shifted combat visor. The sky itself seemed to peel apart, revealing a void that defied description. Her strike team, positioned on phase-shifted platforms around the breach, represented Earth's first line of defense. All units, maintain quantum sync, she ordered, her voice steady despite the horrifying sight above. Remember your training. Conventional weapons are useless. Phase-shift weapons only. The tear widened, spreading like a wound in reality. Through her specialized sensors, Foster could see the Void Hunters emerging, entities that seemed to absorb both light and matter, their forms constantly shifting between states of existence. First wave incoming, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his observation post. Multiple entities, moving faster than simulated scenarios. Foster activated her quantum shield, the technology allowing her to exist partially out of phase with baseline reality. Around her, 30 of Earth's best soldiers did the same, their forms shimming as they prepared for humanity's first real combat with the dimensional threat. Colony Outpost 7 has gone dark. A voice reported through the command channel. Serux Prime reports multiple breaches. The Meridian Defense Fleet. It's just gone. Foster pushed aside the reports of losses across the galaxy. Her focus had to be here, now, protecting Earth's largest population center from beings that could erase reality itself. Execute Protocol Shadow Break, she commanded. The phase-shifted platforms around the breach activated, creating a complex web of quantum barriers. The Void Hunters slammed into the defenses, their forms distorting as they encountered resistance for the first time. Energy readings are off the scale, Rodriguez warned. The barriers won't hold long. Foster watched the entities testing the quantum web, learning, adapting. Just as the simulations had predicted, all units prepare for close engagement. Remember, they can't consume what they can't fully perceive. Keep shifting your phase variants. The first barrier shattered with a sound that existed between dimensions. Foster's team opened fire with weapons developed from humanity's quantum shift technology. Beams of energy that existed in multiple phases simultaneously struck the Void Hunters, causing their forms to destabilize. It's working, Rodriguez called out. They're vulnerable to multiphasic attacks. But the entities were adapting quickly. One of them shifted its form, becoming something that hurt to look at, and lunged through the defensive line. 3 soldiers vanished instantly, their reality consumed before they could scream. Phase shift pattern Delta, Foster ordered, her own weapon cycling through different quantum states. Don't let them predict your shifts. The battle above New Beijing became a dance between states of existence. Human soldiers shifted between phases of reality, while fighting beings that consumed existence itself. The sky continued to tear open, revealing more Void Hunters entering their dimension. Colonel Rodriguez's voice carried urgent news. The Centaurian Defense Fleet is reporting success with their crystalline phase technology. They're asking for coordination. Foster made a split-second decision. Patch them into our quantum network. Let's show these things what a united galaxy can do. The air shimmered as Centaurian ships shifted into view, their crystalline technology harmonizing with Earth's quantum defenses. The combined attack caught the Void Hunters in a crossfire of multi-dimensional energy. All units synchronize with Centaurian attack pattern, Foster commanded. Match their phase variants. Create a resonance cascade. The coordinated assault created something new, a harmony of different technologies and perspectives that the dimensional entities hadn't encountered in any reality they'd consumed before. For the first time, the Void Hunters began to retreat. The tear is stabilizing, Rodriguez reported, hope creeping into his voice. They're pulling back. Foster watched the entities withdraw, her quantum sensors detecting their confusion. Humanity's greatest fear had become the galaxy's best hope, and their first victory proved that evolution was the key to survival. Command, this is Colonel Foster, she reported, allowing herself a small smile. New Beijing is secure. The phase shift technology works, especially when combined with other species approaches. We can fight these things. We can win. Above her, the dimensional tear began to close, but Foster knew this was just the beginning. The Void Hunters would return, having learned from this encounter. But next time, humanity wouldn't face them alone. The galaxy was evolving together, and in that evolution lay their salvation. Fleet Admiral Ryan Mitchell stood on the quantum-shifted bridge of the Earth flagship, Sovereign Light, watching as the combined forces of the galaxy prepared for their final stand. The view before him would have been impossible just 6 months ago. Vessels of every known species, each modified with their own version of phase shift technology, moving in perfect coordination. Status report, he commanded, his voice carrying across the bridge where human officers worked alongside alien counterparts. The Centaurian crystal ships are in position, reported Commander Sarah Hayes from her tactical station. Their resonance technology is synchronized with our quantum grid. The Meridian sensor arrays are detecting dimensional fluctuations across all predicted breach points. Council Elder Zerx, once humanity's greatest critic, and now their strongest ally, stepped forward. His crystalline form had been modified to exist partially in quantum space, allowing him to perceive multiple layers of reality simultaneously. The Void Hunters are massing, Zerx announced, his translator conveying the gravity in his tone. They've learned from every previous encounter. This will be their strongest assault. Mitchell nodded, watching as reality began to tear across multiple points in space. The dimensional entities had grown more aggressive, more desperate, as the galaxy's species united against them. This would be their final push, either to consume this reality or be driven back permanently. All ships, execute Operation Daybreak, Mitchell ordered. The combined fleet moved into formation, their various technologies creating a complex web of quantum barriers and phase-shifted weapons arrays. The void between realities split open, and the hunters poured through in unprecedented numbers. Their forms seemed to devour light itself, but now the gathered forces of the galaxy could see them clearly through their combined sensor technologies. Multiple breaches detected, Hayes reported. They're trying to overwhelm our defense grid. Not this time, Mitchell replied. Execute the resonance cascade. Show them what a united galaxy can do. The Centaurian ships began to pulse with crystalline energy that existed in multiple phases. Meridian vessels added their unique quantum harmonics. Earth ships projected phase shift fields that synchronized with both. The combined effect created something entirely new, a multi-dimensional defense that drew strength from each species' unique understanding of reality. The Void Hunters slammed against the unified defense, and for the first time, they recoiled in genuine pain. The combined technologies weren't just stopping them. They were forcing them back into their own dimensional space. It's working, Hayes called out. Their physical form is destabilizing across all quantum phases. Mitchell watched as the entities that had consumed countless realities encountered something they couldn't adapt to: the combined evolution of multiple species working as one. The quantum barriers weren't just defensive anymore. They were reshaping reality itself, creating spaces where the hunters couldn't exist. "Admiral," Zerk said urgently, "the dimensional tiers, they're beginning to collapse on themselves. The feedback from our combined technologies is sealing the breaches." The battle reached its crescendo as ships from every species in the galaxy executed their part of the carefully choreographed defense. Phase-shifted weapons fire, crystalline energy beams, and quantum disruption fields converged on the dimensional tiers. The Void Hunters, for the first time in their existence, found themselves truly trapped and vulnerable. "All ships, full power to quantum arrays," Mitchell commanded. "Push them back into their own space. Seal the breaches behind them." The combined fleet surged forward, their technologies working in perfect harmony. The Void Hunters, unable to adapt to the unified assault, began to retreat. One by one, the dimensional tiers close, reality healing itself as the threats were driven back. "Final breach is sealing," Hayes reported, excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. "They're gone, Admiral. All of them." Mitchell allowed himself a small smile as he watched the last tear in reality seal itself. Around him, the bridge crew, human and alien alike, began to celebrate. They had achieved something unprecedented: the complete defense of their reality through unified evolution. "Send word to Earth and the Council," he ordered. "Operation Daybreak is complete. Our reality is secure." Zerx's crystalline form pulsed with emotion. "When Earth went dark, we thought it was the beginning of our end. Instead, it was the dawn of our greatest achievement." Mitchell looked out at the combined fleet, each ship representing a different species that had chosen to evolve rather than succumb to fear. "That's the thing about darkness," he replied. "Sometimes you have to step into it to find your way to a brighter future." The stars shone more brightly now, undimmed by dimensional tiers. The galaxy's greatest fear had transformed into its greatest triumph, and in the darkness between realities, they had found a light that would guide them forward together.